Okay, I got another video for y'all. Darius the Green Angel got life of Natsu Dragneel, alright? So Natsu was born into a family. Um, there was, him, his mom, his brother, and his father, but then he died. Then he got brought back to life. Um, that was his brother that brought him back to life through experiments and other things, turning him into a demon and other things. He was the strongest demon in the book of E&D. He is E&D, but he didn't know that. He comes to find that out later on. So Natsu is, he grows up, and then his brother is like, I need my brother to learn dragon slaying magic from um, Igneel, a dragon, a fire dragon. And he was like, train my brother and take him into the future and train him there. Or train him, and then we'll take him into the future through the Eclipse Gate. And that's what Layla did. Layla Heartfilia. She sent Natsu and the other Dragon Slayers to the future. Where Natsu then, he was like a little kid, so he didn't know what was going on. He was like, "Where's my dad?" His dad being Igneel, because that's who he remembered as his parent. That dragon. He was like, "Where's my dad at? Where is he at?" And he was lost. But then he found Fairy Tale, and Makara was like, you know, come join us. You have special magic, son. You can be, a part of this guild. And he was like, cool. And then he joined Fairy Tale, and he became a devoted member of Fairy Tale. You know, he met other friends like Urza and Gray and other people too along the way. Um, in the first episode of Fairy Tale, it shows him looking for Igneel because he's older now. He's like a young man, and shit. So he's looking for his long lost father, which is that dragon. And he meets a girl named Lucy, and then she's like, "I want to join the guild called Fairy Tale because they're awesome. All the other guilds ain't as cool as Fairy Tale." And Natsu's like, "Well, I could get you in, since you helped me out with some food and other things. I can get you into the guild real quick." She was like, "All right, cool." But then she, got kidnapped by some guys who were like thugs trying to turn her into a slave. And then Natsu came there and, he defeated them. Um, they were posing as Fairy Tale members. And he was like, "I don't like that. You're not a member of Fairy Tale. You're playing games. You're fucking around lying about shit too much." Then he was like, he took care of that business. And then he was like, "Here, Lucy. Now you get to join Fairy Tale. And now we get to go on quests together." So him and Lucy are going on quests together and other things for a while. Then, she meets Gray, or Natsu introduces her to Gray and Urza, and then eventually they have to fight against a guy from Eisenwald. And he has a flute called Lullaby. It's a flute that, um, it's something from the book of Zeref. Zeref being Natsu's brother, as you find out later. But he gets there, and the lullaby flute. Um, the guy from Eisenwald, his name's Aragorn, I think. Yeah, and that guy was a wind magic user. He tried to trap them inside of a train station, but they got out. Natsu found him and hawked him down and did him in. And then they had to suppress the lullaby flute from destroying the guild masters of the light guilds, because there are dark guilds in Fairy Tale. The Eisenwald Guild was one of them, and they played games and tried to go after the guilds of light that work for the Magic Council too, or under the Magic Council's rule. But they end up doing that. Natsu ends up defeating the lullaby flute thing. But then after that they have another quest. The next quest was to Galuna Island, where he met one of Gray's old friends who wanted to revive Deliora, which is another demon from the Book of Zera. Um, that demon ended up killing Gray's, teacher, and it also killed his family and stuff. So Gray had a personal relationship with the demon, and he was gonna kill himself, but then Natsu was like, no, you can't use that spell called Ice Shell to like kill yourself, but save everybody else because you're my friend, and the guild needs you still. So he was like, nah, you have to, keep on living and other shit. Natsu was like, we'll handle this guy and kick his ass. And they did. And then he also had a scuffle with a guy who used time magic, but it was really a woman masquerading as a guy. Her name was Oltier, and she was playing games, because she likes to fuck around and do stuff that she ain't supposed to do. At least this early on in the story. So Natsu, hit the shit out of her and got her out of there. But he thought she was a guy, you know. And then after they did that quest, another guild attacks Fairy Tail. This one is Phantom Lord. However, this guild is a dark guild, but it's considered a lighter guild of the dark guilds. And like one of their masters, one of the 10 Wizard Saints, so they were playing games. Um, See, because the Magic Council didn't like Fairy Tail because Natsu was so rambunctious during these missions. um his powers got out of control and like burnt down different towns and other things. So people had like complaints, and those complaints went to the Magic Council, and they were like, now you have to like reel your people in Makarov, or else you'll be disbanded. And he's like, we did our job. Just because we went a little overboard doesn't matter. We're still number one guild in Fiore, and they were. That's why they didn't mess with them. They're like, you know what? They do take care of shit, so it's all right. But Phantom Lord was jealous, and they were like, we have to go in here and fuck with these people. So he sent an Iron Dragon Slayer named Gagio to fuck with people in the Fairy Tail Guild. Natsu caught wind of it and other things, and then they went to war with Phantom Lord. Natsu ended up fighting the Element 4 guy who was a fire user. Um, Natsu didn't know how to eat his flames, and then he learned how to eat his flames and whooped his ass real quick and got him out of there. But then, they also took Lucy because she um, was she needed, or her dad wanted her back at the house, at the mansion, because she comes from the Hartfilia family. That's a noble or a rich aristocratic family bloodline. So he wanted his daughter back. So he was like, "We'll hire these guys to get my daughter, and then they'll take care of Fairy Tail too," because that was their goal, the Phantom Lord Guild. So Natsu goes and he fights Gagio, who's an Iron Dragon Slayer, and he was like, "All right, I'll fight you." And they had a great fight. Natsu almost lost, but Lucy was there to help him out. With some Sagittarius fire, fired his arrow, and then Natsu absorbed that fire, and he ended up winning the fight. Then came time for Jalal. Jalal was playing games. Jalal was Jalal Fernandez, and Seagrain Jalal. Um, Seagrain is one of the 10 Wizard Saints. So people thought that Seagrain and Jalal were brothers. However, that wasn't the case. And Jalal was trying to build a Tower of Heaven to resurrect Zeref, the Black Wizard, which is Natsu's brother, so he can lead the world down a path of destruction and darkness. And he was being controlled and manipulated by a sorceress who's, man, she's hot as fuck, kind of. Her name, like I said, is Old Tier, and she was, pulling his, she was playing games with him, you know. Um, she's like, we're doing this for Zeref, and you'll be, a great guy for doing this. Once he's resurrected, everything will be better. And then Jalal was like, yes, yes, I've been, building this tower for, I don't know how long, 10 years. I made people die and other things to complete this tower. And it was made of ether nano and other things. Natsu goes to the island after Urza catches wind of Jalal being there. Um, and then they all go there, the whole gang, Lucy, Gray, and Natsu. And they go there and they fight against this group of assassins called um, the Death Heads Order. Ikaruga is their leader, a bitch who has a sword and she's good with it. Urza ended up fighting her, but he fought. Natsu ended up fighting an owl guy who was able to absorb his magic and even absorb him. But Natsu got saved by Gray, and then after that, Simon and Natsu went looking for Urza because they were like, Jalal's powerful. He's on par with his brother Seagrain, but it's not his brother; it's his projection. See, Jalal has projection magic, so he's actually a powerful guy, more powerful than when they thought. He uses what's called heavenly body magic, and they come to find that out. Um, Natsu ends up going to fight him because he was trying to use Urza as a sacrificial pawn to create Zera, bring him back to life, um, and that wasn't he wasn't gonna let that happen. So he started fighting against Jalal, and Jalal was actually beating Natsu because of his power and other things. However, then Simon died because Jalal got upset um, that Natsu was, kind of in there still. He's like, I don't like this Dragon Slayer playing games with me. I'll kill him. And then Urza tried to step in the way, and then what's his name? Simon stepped in the way and died. And then after that, Natsu started eating ether nano, and Jalal was like, you're dumbass. You're gonna die from eating all that ether nano. But Natsu was able to hone in on his fucking powers real quick and overcome the thing and go into Dragon Force. And then Jalal didn't know what the fuck to do after that. He was like, he wasn't there after that. Natsu had his ass beat. And then Jalal, tried to kill Natsu with one of his powerful moves, but Natsu's attacks got to him, wore him down, and Natsu punched him into the water. And they thought he was dead, but he saved Urza, and they went back to the guild. Then another thing happened. Loxus comes back to the guild. Loxus is an S-class wizard, along with Urza and Mystigan, who also looks like Jalal, but is from another world. So Mystigan wasn't in town. Urza was there, and other things. It was the Fantasia parade. In Magnolia, the city where Fairy Tale Guild lies, every year they have a parade to celebrate, you know. But Loxus was playing games. He was like, I don't like the way that my grandfather runs the guild. He's kind of weak, and he's running that shit into the ground. So the Thunder Legion needs to take over, and I need to become its new master. And then Makarov was like, you don't do shit like that. You can't have your fellow guild mates fight one another when it's your guild. It doesn't matter if they're weaker than you or not. And Loxus was like, I don't care. If they're weak, they can't be a part of this guild. And so he had a fight, and they started fighting each other. Members of Fairy Tale. To get these girls unpetrified from Evergreen's petrification, they had to fight against each other. But Natsu was trapped inside of an enchantment that Freed put up, so he couldn't fight yet until they got Urza and then Levi outside of the enchantment. They broke out of Evergreen's enchantment and other things, and then they got out. Natsu went to go find Loxus because he knew that Loxus was playing games. He was like, and Natsu was kind of he was like, that's just Loxus, the guy who's stronger than me. I want to fight him because he's stronger than me, and I want to see what the fuck he can do. And he's kind of being weird right now, but he started. Loxus found Urza first though, and then Urza was fighting him. Or not Urza, actually. Mystigan came there, and Loxus held down against Mystigan, and then he held down against Urza, and then Natsu was there. Natsu was like, here, I'm here. And he started fighting against Loxus, but Loxus was more than he could handle by himself. And then Gagio stepped in the way before he could die from some a whole bunch of lightning hitting him. And then they started fighting him together, and Natsu and Gagio were doing some damage when they did that, but not as much as they thought, because then Loxus revealed that he was a Dragon Slayer too, and then he shocked them, and they were like, almost at death's door. And then he also pulled out fairy law on them too. Like he hit him with everything. Aloxa started hitting him with every powerful spell he had, and they were like, we're like basically screwed when he pulled that one out. But then, it was all right because Loxus didn't really want to, kill anybody in the guild. He was just, he was in some type of fucking way because everybody was weak. And he didn't like the way the guild was being ran and other things. So Natsu whooped his ass on top of the roof, almost died again, but Gajo dumped him away and diverted the lightning bolt so Natsu could open up some Giant Slayer secret arts on him. And then he did. But Natsu then was like in bandages. And then Loxus was expelled from the guild. After that, though, a couple weeks passed, and then they have to fight against the Arashion Seis. That's one of the leaders of the Barum Alliance, which is 3 dark guilds who control all the other dark guilds in the land. The Arashion Seis is 6 people who have lost magic, powerful magic, and they were trying to use a thing called Nirvana to turn the light to good and or the dark to good and the light to bad. They were gonna bend that shit to like their power, and really they were trying to make everything evil and shit. That's what they were gonna do because they knew how to operate the Nirvana system, but they needed Jalal's help. The coalition of 4 guilds called Pelu Pegasus, Fairy Tale, Lamia Scale, and Lamia Scale, Blue Pegasus, and Cake Shelter. They were all there to fight against the Irrational Seis. Natsu goes to fight against the Irrational Seis, and he finds Jalal, but then Jalal, gets away. Then Natsu's looking for people, and he ends up finding, Cobra, and he fights Cobra to a fight, right? Cobra is a guy who uses, poison dragon slaying magic, and much like Loxus, he's a dragon slayer, but not the type of dragon slayer that Natsu is. See, he's a second generation dragon slayer. He has a dragon lacrima implanted inside of his body. That's the magic of the dragon put inside of an orb and then put inside of a person's body. And that's what he had. And he uses poison dragon slaying magic against Natsu. And this poison was working on Natsu, and he could also dodge Natsu because he could hear every single thought that Natsu had. Natsu had to get creative and scream really loud to rupture his eardrums, and then that's how he defeated him. After that, the guild the coalition was fighting against the other members, taking them down one by one. Urza took down the last member, and then Zero emerged. When Zero emerged, shit got real. They, went into the Nirvana cave, and Natsu was like, "You're the leader, so I'm gonna take you down." And it wasn't that easy. So Zero, ended up knocking him out. Him, Lucy, in Gray, and Happy, and then after that, EBQ was like, you have to take down all 6 lacrimas at the same time. We need 6 able bodies to go into Nirvana and destroy these lacrimas real quick. So Natsu took Road 1, and he ended up meeting Zero in that one, and he was like, cool, I get to fight this guy and kick his ass. But Natsu was, on the back foot because this guy's a leader of one of the strongest dark guilds in the land, so Natsu was losing. But then Jalal got there, and he's like, here's the flame of rebuke, take it. Natsu was like, I can handle this shit, even though Jalal gave it to me and Jalal did some fucked up shit to my friends, a couple more sins ain't gonna scare me, because Zero was running his fucking mouth, and then he ran that fucking timing with him and put him in the fucking ground basically. But Zero did try to send Natsu to another world and shit because he was a weak ass old man trying to play games. And then Natsu was like, "Nah, we ain't going there. We're out of that bitch." And he took care of him with some Dragon Slayer secret arts, shit he didn't know about. Cracked the Lacrima at the same time, and then saved the day. That was done. Then the next adventure that Natsu went on was, everything got took into another world. They so there's Earthland. That's where Fiore is, and then there's Edalus. That's a place that is, that's another universe basically inside the fairy tale universe, another dimension, another, you know alternate reality. All right. So, but in that land, magic isn't used, but there's the flying cats. Um, that's where Happy and Carla, came from. They came from this world called Edalus, and they were there, and they couldn't use magic. That's the thing about this world. Much like real world, there's no magic. However, they took the magic from Earthland to produce magic in their world. If you know what I'm saying, they tried to take the magic from Earthland so that they could use magic in Edalus, and they were gonna do that so they could um, take down Extalia, the cats who fly around, because they were worshipped as gods and deities there. But the king didn't like that secretly, and he was gonna destroy them, and he was gonna take all the magic in the land for himself. As he had some people who had magic. He had his four knights, Panther Lily, Urza Nightwalker, and two other guys. A guy who has clock eyes, and I think the other guy name was Sugar Boy. He had a pink armor on. And these four knights, were, on King Faust's side, they were gonna drain the magic from the fairy tale members who were trapped inside of a blue crystal, which was it held all of them in it. Gajia was able to take them out of that crystal, but Natsu got captured because of his dragon slaying magic, and he got drained of his dragon slaying magic. They were like, Byro was like, hey, this guy and this little girl called Wendy, who they picked up after, the Irrational Sace, he was like, these two are dragon slayers. That's lost magic. We could use their magic to fuel this city for years to come. And they were like, we're gonna drain these people of their magic. But Natsu was like, don't give in. Don't let them steal your fucking energy real quick. Then Urza came there and stopped that shit. Then after a whole bunch of shit went down, the fairy tale members got freed, um, and then everybody was fighting against different people. But Natsu, Wendy, and Gaju had to fight against King Faust, because Jalal, or not Jalal, Mistigan couldn't fight against his own father. Um, he just didn't have the ability to, because it was an armored dragon that absorbed magical power. And the dragon slayers were like, we can fight against this thing. This is a fake ass dragon. We can take this shit out. So Natsu led the charge, and they started, fighting against this dragon. That King Faust was operating like a little bitch. He was hiding inside of the dragon, and eventually Natsu got thrown, with wind magic, and he amplified his fire with Wendy's magic, and he cracked through that shit and pulled his ass out. Like, oh man, you're not doing shit. Um, you know, we got you outside of the dragon, and he was just like, I can't do shit no more. Like, he didn't even try to fight back after Natsu, tore out, destroyed the the uh mecha dragon that he was in. He, he was like, whatever. This shit is I shouldn't have tried this shit against these people. Is basically what he said to himself, and he lost. And then they went back to Earthland. That arc was kind of I don't know. I didn't like that much, but some people might like it. But then this arc was cool, called Tenro Island. See, when Tenro Island came around, Natsu was on course to become a S-class wizard. See, Gildarts came back to town, and Gildarts is the strongest S-class wizard in Fairy Tale. Actually, the strongest wizard in Fairy Tale. And Natsu looked up to him, and he was like, cool. This is, Gildarts, and he's going to be one of the ones um, at the S-class trials, testing to see if any of these wizards qualify to become S-class wizards. Um, and it wasn't just Natsu, Kana, Gray, Levy, eh, uh, who else? Freed, Justine, and a whole bunch of other people. Elfman was one of them too. Gray Fullbuster was one too. They all qualified to be S-class wizards. So they had to go to the S-class trials, which was on Tenro Island. That's the island where the first guild master was born, and that's where her magic lie. So that's where she was, or her burial ground, or whatever. That's where magic was, and where she was born, and other things. So that was the sacred ground. And they were there. They were fighting. Natsu did end up fighting against Gildarts, but he came to find out that he wasn't strong enough to fight against the strongest wizard in fairy tale. He was upset too. But Ganju was like, or not Ganju, Gildarts was like, you're still qualified to be an S-class wizard, even though you couldn't beat me outright. You know, other people couldn't even stand against me as long as you did. So he was impressed. But Natsu was like, you know what, it's whatever. But at that point, Grimoire Heart came there. And that's the thing, Grimoire Heart is one of the Barm Alliance guilds. Um, and the Seven Kin of Purgatory were a part of, that group. And these seven kin heeded calls to a man called Lord Hades, who was also Master Prek, the second guild master, the guild master before Makarov. And Makarov found that out and was like, why would you go down a path of darkness and other things and start fucking with Zeref's magic and stuff? You were the person who put me on the path to become the, guild master after you left. Why would you do shit like that? And he was like, I'm trying to create a world that Zeref wants. And he handled Makarov and he got him out of there. But then Natsu had to fight against one of his lackeys, one of Hades' lackeys. His name was Zonkro. This guy was a flame god slayer. He had a lost magic called flame god slaying magic. And this guy was, hard for Natsu to defeat, mainly because Natsu couldn't absorb his flames. He can usually absorb people's flames and amplify his power, right? And as a dragon slayer, you have to consume the element to become more powerful. But he couldn't absorb these flames because these were divine flames, black flames. And he was like not getting it. Even Makarov had to like step in and be like and hold down Zonkro and be like, you can't touch Natsu, that's my, guy and shit, he's part of my guild. And then he's like, no, I'll kill both of you. And then Natsu, put his power down to zero, and then he started to absorb the flame because that's what he had to do. Natsu was like, if I took all my magic out of my system and then absorb your magic, that's how I can absorb your fire. And that's how he did it. And he was like, Zonkro was like, what? This guy's now using my magic and his magic. And he handled Zonkro and got him out of there. Then he was running through the forest looking for his guildmates, and he found old Tyr. And he was like, you smell like that old man that I, like, I kicked that guy's ass back at Galuna Island. It's going to be the same thing. But she was like, no, she actually ran him through the fucking ground. And then, other people found Natsu and was like, Natsu, are you all right? And he was like, yeah. They were looking for Zeref. That's why Grimoire Heart was there in the first place. They were looking for Zeref so they could control him and use him to, make a grand new world ruled by him, but not really ruled by him because they were going to try to manipulate him to do stuff. But Zeref is like a powerful wizard. He's called the Black Wizard for a reason. And everybody knew him from like everywhere in the land knew him. And Zeref, like, he had the law of contradiction, the curse of unsung. And he was like destroying the plants on Tenor Island and all kind of shit. They were like, he's here. And then the Magic Council caught wind of it, and they were like, Acnologia was said from his mouth too. So they left. The Magic Council actually left, and then Fairy Tale was fighting against these people of Grimoire Heart. And then so Grimoire Heart sent out a guy named Blue Note Stinger. When Blue Note Stinger came out, Natsu was, running around with Lucy and everybody else because they had been fighting for a while. And he was like, all right, I'm going to try to fuck this guy up, since nobody else can fight, it's all these girls and then me. And he couldn't do it. Kana tried to use one of the secret arts called Fairy Glitter, and even that didn't work. So then, they were almost screwed, but then Guild Arts got there, and Natsu and everybody else got away. And at the same time, Urza was fighting against somebody who was taking their power and zapping it to zero. Now it was Azanu of the trees. And Urza ended up defeating him, and then they all gathered together. Natsu, Urza, Gray, and Lucy, and Wendy, and they went up to fight Hades. Lord Hades was powerful. They hit him with Unison Raid, like right off the break, and it didn't do shit. Unison Raid is when all these wizards get together and hit him with this. Like they hit their magic off at the same time, combining their magic to like use a stronger attack. But it wasn't enough. He was unscathed and shit, and they were like, "What the fuck? This old man's playing games." Then he started shooting off, beams of dark light and like attacking Natu specifically because Natu has a loud mouth and like you can't you ain't getting away with it. You fucked with our guild master. You're weak as fuck. You gotta stop playing games. And he shot him off like boom, 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 and then he was gonna kill Natsu too, but then Noxus got there, and then Noxus started fighting against him, and Natsu was watching with everybody else, and then after that, um, it come to that Noxus wasn't strong enough either, and then Hades was gonna defeat him, and Noxus actually gave his power to Natsu, and that's when Natsu unlocked Lightning Flame Dragon mode, so he could use two elements and absorb two elements, lightning and fire. And he used that power to like fuck Hades up. He actually got some great hits on Hades and shit. Hit him with the lightning flame dragon roar, and that shit like went out the fucking ship and went way the fuck off into the distance. Like that was a powerful move that put him. He was like playing games too much. But then he was still playing games and he used the devil's eye and he started summoning creatures from, other dimensions and shit. Apparitions and shit like that. And it also like created an atmosphere that was like very depressing, very, grim and things. They were started to be like, we can't win this. But Natsu was like, no, we can still win this shit. We ain't gonna, give in to despair or any of that shit. This we're together. This is fairy tale and stuff. This shit happens all the time in fairy tale. But that's when it happened. And luckily for them, the cats were down there and they destroyed the devil's heart. And then they all got hits on Hades and Natsu hit him with a Dragon Slayer headbutt. Hit him like boom, sword horn to the fucking chest, and that put him out. But after that, everybody was, together. And that was at the island. Um, Unfortunately, though, there, was still a threat called Acnologia on the way. That was a dragon. The dragon of the apocalypse, Acnologia. And they, all tried to fight him. Natsu was there and he was like, let's go in on him. We're dragon slayers. He called all the dragon slayers to do that shit. Like, let's hit him with everything we got, y'all. And they started hitting it with everything they got. But Acnologia is a tank. Couldn't handle like they couldn't do shit to Acnologia. And Acnologia was actually gonna destroy the island, but then Mavis's power saved everybody. And put him in a fairy sphere for 7 years. They got, in cryostasis basically. Almost. They got frozen in time for 7 years. The island like reemerged 7 years later, and the guild mates that were still at the guild were like, they went out to see if they could find them, and they did 7 years later. It took them 7 years, and but to everybody that got frozen in time, it was just like only a few days has passed. But then they come to find out that 7 years passed, and all this extra stuff happened. Fairy Tale was not number one in the land of Fury no more, and it was a guild called Sabretooth, and their Dragon Slayers were on the scene. That's Sting and Rogue. These are third generation Dragon Slayers. They have Lacrimas, and they were trained by Dragon Slayers. Um, those two um, are people that they would fight in the tournament called the Grand Magic Games. To like in the Grand Magic Games was held every year to see who was the strongest guild in Fiore, and Sabretooth was the strongest guild since they had Sting and Rogue, Minerva, Yukino, Rufus, and Olga. So they were all there, and all the guilds came there. Jura from Mermaid Hill was there, or not Mermaid Hill, my bad. Lamia skill, and then Mermaid Hill had Kagura, Mikazuki. She, was there. Everybody was there. They were trying to, do stuff. Um, so Natsu ended up fighting in the tournament against Sting and Rogue with Gagio. They were like, these two and versus these two. The Fairy Tale Dragon Slayers versus those Dragon Slayers from um, Sabretooth. And they started fighting against each other. Before the tournament, though, they had to unlock third or second origin powers, powers that lie dormant within themselves. So that came to in this fight because Natu had to like eventually fight these two by himself because he got Gagio out of there. He's like, Gagio, let me handle this shit by myself. I want to prove that I can beat these two Dragon Slayers by myself. And he did. He's Dragon Slayer Secret Arts, and he did that again. He defeated both Sting and Rogue by himself. And then after that, another thing happened. Dun dun dun. It's called Rogue from the future came back to the past and wanted to like um cause havoc, but he wanted to like bring dragons through. So he told the Princess Hisui, that she needs to open up the gate and summon power that will defeat Acnologia. That's what he told her. And she was like, cool, this guy, told me to do this, so we're gonna do this. And everybody was like not sure if they should do it or not. As the Eclipse Gate hadn't been used in like over 10 years. When the Dragon Slayers came through originally, that would be Natsu and all them as a time portal. And so they opened up the gate again, and dragons from 400 years in the past came through. Seven of them came through. So they were seven dragons in Fiore, and nobody had the power to fucking fight against them except the Dragon Slayers, because the Dragon Slayers have dragon slaying magic, and there were seven Dragon Slayers. See, Durhambolt or Mest had to like go let Cobra out of his prison cell because he's a Dragon Slayer, and they were like, we need you to fuck this dragon up because nobody else has dragon slaying magic but you. And then Wendy, Loxus, and Sting and Rogue were there too. Gaja was there, and Natsu was fighting against Atlas Flame. Atlas Flame was like, hold on, you smell like Igneel. That's one of my brothers. He's also a fire dragon, but he was the fire dragon king. So Atlas Flame was like, you know what? I'm like your uncle. If you call Igneel your dad, I'm your uncle. I'll help you out. And Natsu, got power from the Atlas Flame, and he started fighting against Future Rogue. Oh shit, but before that, he killed Lucy from the future. Lucy from the future came back to the past to warn everybody about Future Rogue and that he would run, a whole bunch of dragons through and destroy the world. But she died protecting herself. And then Natsu got upset, and then Rogue got away. But then Rogue, started fighting against Natsu again because, he started fighting on top of another dragon called Mother Glare. I think that's what that dragon was called. But Future Rogue was using certain dragon slaying magic to control these dragons, but like Natsu was able to get Atlas Flame out of the brainwashing so he could think for himself and not he caused Future Rogue's brainwashing ability against one another. And Natsu ended up defeating Future Rogue, slamming him into the Eclipse Gate, closing the Eclipse Gate and other things. And then all the dragons went back in time. And then, Future Rogue died and other things. And he told Natsu, he was like, don't let Gray kill Froach in like 2 years because that's when I'll go down a path of darkness. Because Rogue was still alive. They were going to kill Rogue from their current timeline to kill the future Rogue. But then they were like, no, don't do that. And it was actually Ultir's magic too. I almost forgot. Ultir's magic came into play too, because she used Arc of Time magic to send the whole world back, 1 minute in time. And that 1 minute was able to, change shit a lot. Because, like, before she hit that magic off, even Natsu was on the back end. He was getting his ass beat by Future Rogue. Everybody was losing until she used Arc of Time to send shit backwards real quick. And then they all saw the future and they were like, "Oh, I can see, a minute into the future. Like, how did I know that? That should happen." Um, thanks to her, they were able to fucking, get shit done. Um, and save Fiore from Future Rogue's rampage and all the dragons. After that, though, they went back to the guild for some time. But then the last threat of the Barham Alliance appeared, and that's the one that um, started hinting at Natsu being a demon, because this was Tartaros, the 9 demon gates, and those are demons created from Zeref. Zeref created these demons to be strong and other things, and they have the drive to get back to Zeref and then be Zeref's minions, do whatever he says. They bow and everything. As they were created through Aetherius, a certain type of magic that Zeref knew how to do because he's the Black Wizard. Dark magic and shit created these animals. Curse energy. It's curse magic, so it wasn't what other things were. So other things were made of magic, but curse magic was different. They had to fight against these people. The Fairy Tale Guild did. And Urza got taken away. So Natsu was like, I have to go save Urza. So he goes to the Tartaros Guild and he gets frozen by Silver. Silver freezes him solid in ice. And he's like, I can't break out of this for some reason. Because it's Ice Devil Slaying magic. It ain't the regular ice. And Natsu's also part demon, but he doesn't learn that until later. So he goes and he gets out. He breaks out of the cell with Lasagna, and then they find Lucy and they fight against a guy named Fallmouth. This guy was able to take souls from other people. Like, he took the soul of Hades and he started using the powers of Hades on Natsu and other things. But Natsu was like, I beat Hades, so I can beat you. Um, and he did beat that guy, shrunk him down into a little like mushroom and shit. And then he went on his way to fight the other demons. And everybody else was fighting demons too from Fairy Tail. This shit was like so bad that because they were trying to activate a system called Face. So Face was Face was a system that was supposed to eliminate all magic from the land, and then the demons could run around and kill people as they please because they use cursed magic, not regular magic. The curses were, powerful. They didn't know how to fight against some of the shit because they kept certain of these demons could get regenerated at a recoup tank ran by Salia, and Mira Jane ended up handling that. But Natsu had to fight against uh, Jackal too. He before he got to God damn, I keep forgetting. Before he got to Tartaros, though, he had to fight against Jackal, and he defeated Jackal. It took a lot, though. He had to use Lightning Flame Dragon mode and punch him through like some fucking, buildings real quick, because he just wouldn't go down, and he would cause explosions too. So if you touch a Jackal, then you start to explode. You don't want to touch him too much, or that's how many explosions go off on you. So he was like, I can't, do that. He fought him again too, but then Loxus came to help and other things because Natsu was looking for um, Gray, and not just Gray, but the real boss. The real boss of all these demons was a guy named Margir. He had the Book of END, which is Natsu's book. And even Zeref appeared to say, will END win in the end, or will you win in the end? Because Natsu only knows himself as Natsu Dragneel, not Aetherius Natsu Dragneel. That is who he really is, or that's how Zeref created him to come back to life. Natsu didn't know that because that was erased from his memory and shit. So Natsu then ends up fighting against marred gear with Gray, you know, and then he tried to send Janema after him, but not to dismiss Janema, um, because he was like future or not future, Sting and Rogue can handle that guy. Me and Gray will fight against marred gear, who is using Allegria and other things to like keep shit at bay and other things like keep these wizards at bay. After he fought against the Celestial Spirit King, but the Celestial Spirit King couldn't fight him for long because he had a time limit. And then Natsu and Gray, Natsu was using Fire Dragon Slayer magic, but Gray was using a newfound power called Ice Devil Slayer magic because his dad gave it to him before he departed and died. And Gray was, using a lot of his magic, and Natsu used his, and they ended up defeating him. And that's what Igneel wanted him to do. So Igneel emerged from inside of Natsu, and all the other dragons emerged from inside of their dragon slayers too. They come to find out that those dragons never left him. They went inside of them when they went back in time, or when they went to the future as children, when they sent them into the future. Um, these dragons went inside of the dragon slayers to keep them, cool and keep them from turning into dragons. And then Acnologia came there because he could smell the other dragons emerging from the dragon slayers. So he was like, I want to kill these dragons. As that's what Acnologia does. He kills other dragons and takes their power. He gets stronger from that. He gets that's how he gets off. That's how he likes to do shit like that. He likes to challenge other dragons and kill them and shit. And that's what he did. He killed Igneo, and then Natsu was so upset and other things. Um, because he thought that his dad was like gone, but he was with him the whole time. And then he finally saw his dad again, but then his dad died, and it was like so upset. He was so upset. But and all the other dragons, went their own went, um, and they disappeared because it was their time to like disappear. As when they go inside the Dragon Slayer and then come out into the real world, they can only be there for like a certain amount of time. So all of them like disappeared into nothingness. But then a year time skip happens because Makarov's like, we can't do this. Um, we have to disband because this threat was, powerful. We almost lost everybody during this. But, the guildmates were like, well, we're still here. You know, we're still, alive. People didn't die. We might have got hurt and other things, but we're still here. And then Makarov's like, no, I ain't gonna put my children through that. We have to disband and shit. We cannot be a guild anymore. And then a year time skip happened. Um, because Alvarez Empire was planning on coming to Fiore and laying waste to it, and they didn't know why. But Makarov went to Alvarez Empire to see what was going on, and he come to find out a lot of things. And Natsu went to go train in the mountains for a while, so Natsu trained in the mountains for a year, and then he comes to find Lucy. She was at the Grand Magic Games, but there was a bunch of weak ass people there. He like melted the whole stadium and other things to prove that he was stronger and other things. He even melted her clothes off to be like, "Hey, girl, I'm cool." Uh, and she was there, and he was like, "Let's get the guild back together." And she was like, "I'm down for that because for the past year I've just been a swimsuit model, a photographer for Social Weekly." Um, she was wondering when that shit was gonna happen. So Natsu was like, "Here, I'm here, and we're gonna get the guild back together." So they got Wendy, and then they got everybody else, and they come to find out that Gray was a part of a guild called Avatar. Avatar Guild wanted to like bring back Zeref and everything else. They were Zeref dick riders like everybody else. A dark guild. But Gray was really not against them. He was just acting like it because and Urza knew that because she was working for the Magic Council, and Gaja was working for the Magic Council. They went to work for the Magic Council during the year time skip. And they were like, working together in cahoots, and they were like, we have to take these guys down because they were trying to play games. The guy who was the leader of Avatar summoned one of the battle gods of Yakima, and they had to fight against that shit. Natsu ended up, putting a fucking end to that too. Um, Smashing its head in with demolition fist real quick, and that was it. Then they come to find out that Makarov was in Alakatashia or Alvarez Empire, and there's 12 wizards there that are like on par with like basically the wizard saints of Ishgar. But that's the thing. The strongest of the four emperors of Ishgar went over to their side because he was like, everybody here is weak, but over there in Alvarez, there's people who are stronger than me. They could actually, be cool. Everybody on this continent's weak as fuck, so I'll go over there. And that's where he went. And then there was 12 of them. He was one of them, and then there was 12 other people. And then Emperor Spriggan was none other than Zeref himself. And Makarov come to find that out, and he was like, "Oh no, that's Zeref." And Zeref was like, "We're coming to Fairy Tale. We're gonna kill you, and then we're gonna go to Fairy Tale, get the fairy heart, and I'm gonna reset the world and create it in my way." And he was like, "No, you ain't gonna do that." And then Mess comes to save him, and then they're all like, Gramps is here now. He can be the guild master again. And he's like, whatever. I missed my family and other things. We're gonna be cool again. And then they all went and they started running, and fucking the guy named Agiel was after them. He's the Desert King, so he used sand magic to a great degree. And then Loxus came there and he stopped that shit. And he saved everybody. Um, then they went back to the guild, and after that, that's when the raid happened from Alvarez Empire. They were like, okay, we'll come on ships. We'll come from the east. We'll come from the west. We'll come from the north. We'll come from all four cardinal directions. But people from other guilds were like aware of this shit. The Wizard Saints gathered together. The other guilds who were allies with Fairy Tale, Blue Pegasus, Lamia Skill, and Sparkle Cerberus, and all those other people. Sabretooth was there too, and they were all there. And Natsu and Wendy and Gagio went after these ships that were ran by Agio's fleet, and they were fighting and stuff. They were destroying ships. But then they come to find out that if they stood on the ship, they have motion sickness. That's the weakness of all the Dragon Slayers. They're on something moving and they start to like throw up and shit. So they were like, okay, we can't be up here. So Urza had to go and substitute in for them and fight against Ajil instead. So Natsu went and he was like, okay, I'm gonna find my brother called Zeref and I'm gonna end his life with this new ability I have. Igneal's magic was in his right arm, I think it was, and I'll kill him with this attack. And he found him. He wiped out like damn like a fifth of Zeref's like 1,000-man army that was protecting him. He wiped out a fifth of those guys, and then he was like, let's fight, brother. And they were like fighting each other. But then Happy was like, if you use that magic, then you'll probably die or something like that. So he was like, I don't want you to die. And then he took him and then they left. Um, then everybody else was fighting. God Serena defeated the other wizard saints, and then also Acnologia came there too, because Acnologia is drawn to like powerful energy, and he could sense God Serena's energy as he defeated the other four wizard saints. And he was like, this guy thinks he's a dragon. I'll kill him, and he killed him with one slash. And then everybody else was fighting. Loxus was fighting against one of the members of the 12. Um, Urza was, Jalal was there too, playing games, fighting against one of these guys. And they were there. They had apprehended one of the girls, Brandish, and Lucy ended up getting her to be a little cool with Fairy Tale because they used to have the same like past basically. Their mothers knew each other and shit, so they like kind of bonded over that a little bit. And then they went and she was like, I could maybe see if August, the Wizard King, because he's wise and old, and she saw him as like a father figure. She's like, I could maybe make him, calm the fuck down and get us like to not fight each other anymore. I could like maybe reason with him. So she went up to him and other things, but Mest used mind control and like had her stab him. And then he got pissed and he was like, how dare you make this girl, stab me? And he was gonna like destroy everything. But then the other, one of the 12 springs that's like really powerful, that'd be Urza's mommy called Irene Belsarion. She was like, she used Universe One and she like reshaped the landscape. She sent shit different areas, like switched shit around. The different places were in different places. Magnolia was where the magic capital um should be, and the magic capital was like other places. She switched it around, and they were like, why am I here when I was over there? And they were like that. Um, so eventually they find Nineheart, which was one of those guys, and he was amplified by Irene's magic, and Natsu, took him down and other things. But then he was like, there was a demon seed inside him, so he was like, oh fuck, I'm passing out. I'm like, oh, and he passed out. Then Demaria was like, I'll kill Natsu and stuff, and Lucy's like, no, no. But then Natsu woke up, but when he woke up, he was a demon called E&D, and E&D was there. Natsu was like, I have to find Zeref, because that's what I'm created to do, kill Zeref. That's why E&D was created, to kill Zeref, as Zeref wanted to die because he was immortal and other things. But he had like he had head problems because he had existed for over 400 years, creating all kinds of magics, all kind of fucking rumors spread about the man because he's been everywhere and other things. But Natsu was like, I have to find Zeref and kill him. And then Gray was after E&D because E&D was the strongest creation of Zeref. And Zeref's the reason why Deliora was created. And Deliora was created and killed his parents and killed his master. And Gray had a whole bunch of hate for E&D. And he come to find out that Natsu was E&D. And so he was like, you know what? We get to fight against each other now. I had no idea it was you, but I don't care. I have to kill you now. And they started fighting against one another. But then Urza got there in the nick of time and said, don't fight one another. Guess what? Makarov died because he was trying to protect everybody. Because he had to hit off Fairy Law on a whole bunch of like weak ass animals who were like fucking around with the guild. And he did that. And they were there and they were like, okay, now we can't be fighting with each other because we are friends. It took a lot to do that and other things. But Natsu went on his way and he was like, we're gonna find Zeref and we're gonna defeat him. Urza went after her mother and Wendy was with her. They were all there and well, Gray went after Zeref first, and they were like, we have to wait